Okay, levels are looking good. I think we're ready to do a show. All right, ready for the Daily Reflux? Me neither. Coming up on today's edition of the Daily Reflux, Trumpcare is DOA. I hate medical bills too, but I love Designated Survivor. Details on these stories plus a whole lot more coming up on the Daily Reflux for Monday, March 27th, 2017.
You guys haven't been on time for the last 6 months.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Man, you always know just what to say.
And good morning, my friends. Welcome to another edition, the first edition, rather, of the Daily Reflux. It's the morning show that can air at any time, hence the name, the Daily Reflux. Otherwise, I would have called it the Morning Reflux or something else like that, which was a previous title up until about, an hour or so ago. Well, welcome to the program where we talk about anything and everything, and glad you could tag along. And before I get very far into the festivities, as it were, encourage you to check out my new website, joehaftermedia.com. That's joehaftermedia.com. It's real simple, easy to navigate, and slowly things are coming together. joehaftermedia.com. And if you have something on your mind, something you'd like to talk about, take issue with something that I said, or maybe want to get into the Amen Choir, you can do so by sending me an email at joehaftermedia@gmail.com. Very simple. joehaftermedia.com is the website. joehaftermedia@gmail.com is the email address. I made it so simple, even I can remember it, even if I have to think about it for a little bit. Well, talk about Trumpcare here in just a little bit, but got some things I want to get off my chest here, because this is a forum for me to basically be, kind of a digital diary, as it were. I like to talk from time to time. And anyway, most people don't know this. Only a handful of friends and a couple of relatives know the full extent. But about 4 months ago, first part of December, as a matter of fact, it was a week after Thanksgiving, when this all started, December 1st last year, and if you are squeamish about bodily fluids and things like that, you might want to tune out for a couple of minutes, okay? But anyway, what happened was, I woke up the Thursday morning a week after Thanksgiving. It was around 8:30, and I was coughing, and you get those winter coughs and stuff like that, late autumn coughs and stuff like that every now and then. And I didn't think too much of it at first, but as I was laying in bed, I had this sensation that I was drowning in fluid. I thought, well, maybe it was just phlegm, but I had that iron taste in my mouth, and I knew immediately that was blood. And I thought, well, did I pinch my tongue or something, or do I have a loose tooth or something weird like that? And I started to wipe my mouth, and there's blood in my hand. So I quickly got up, spit it out, coughed a little bit more blood came out. It was really a weird sensation. I looked and I know my teeth are, grotesquely yellow, but they're not bleeding. There's no bleeding gums. And so, washed my mouth out, calmed down, went back to bed, but of course had trouble sleeping for a little bit. because I think in all these scenarios, like, what is going on? Was it an allergy? Do I have cancer? All these things start going through my head. I thought, okay, well, I'll just give it a little time, relax. If the symptoms come up again, I will definitely go to a doctor. Well, a day and a half passed, and nothing happened until that Saturday. And I was at work when this happened. Coughed again. Now, it wasn't as much because I was conscious when this was happening this time. And a little bit more, but again, the same sensation, the same taste in my mouth. I thought, well, this is not good because I work in food production industry. I can't be going around coughing up blood. It's like, okay, something's definitely wrong here. So I'll go to the doctor on Monday. Well, as luck would have it, it happened one more time that Monday morning before I went to the doctor. Well, mysteriously, though, after I got to the ER, I didn't cough up any more blood. But it was really aggravating, just sitting there thinking, going through all these scenarios, and there's nothing wrong. Well, the doctor assumed that it was probably just a weird allergic reaction to something, or sometimes, you cough so hard that you burst a capillary. I thought, well, now I get a medical bill a few weeks later, in which states that I owe, I was like around $2,500 to $3,000. And I'm thinking, good grief, all these people did. Now, I'm not knocking the medical profession, but the prices are outrageous. And this is what pisses me off about the medical industry, is that there's no predictability. There's no uniform cost to say, you go in for this is how much it's going to cost. Say for an x-ray or for, which I had done, as one of the tests that I underwent back in December. Well, anyway, I got the medical bill last Thursday, and I think Wednesday or Thursday, somewhere around then. Well, I was not able to set up a payment plan until today, which I did about a half hour before this program. And what bugs me, though, is how nonchalant the gal on the other end set up the payment plan. For 16 months, about $300, a pop, which is, not bank breaking, but it will bite into my pocketbook a little bit, despite my HSA. But I'm thinking, couldn't you be a little more sympathetic? But then I guess you can't get too emotionally involved, like can in other industries. But still, it bugs me though that all this, and I'm still paying out the wazoo for the peace of mind knowing that I don't have cancer, at least as of right now. Because I expect at some point in my life, I think you can exercise all you want, eat the healthiest foods. My mom is living testament to this. Of course, there's no telling what elements she's been exposed to, but, finding breast cancer. And then my dad, of course, was a chain smoker, basically, which didn't help him any. And then he's also exposed to nefarious agents like Agent Orange when they were testing it in various European outposts back in the early 60s, because back then they didn't know what they were messing with. They thought they were just messing with some sort of chemical warfare, but they had no idea that it had these other disastrous effects on human health, including the people that were applying it. And so, lo and behold, come the late 70s, and he started showing these signs of mesothelioma. And so, there you go. Well, I'll talk about Designated Survivor here in just a moment, the new ABC show that came out this fall. But right now, before I get into my opinion pieces of the day, let's find out what's going on. 5 things you need to know about the day. Now, most of you are probably already at work or doing your things, taking care of your daily business, as it were. But, for us latecomers, Here's some things you might want to know as you head out so that you don't look like a complete idiot at the office water cooler. First of all, Mosul. It's the sort of thing that breaks your heart every time it happens. Innocent civilians killed by the tools of war. Dozens of people died after a U.S.-led airstrike hit an ISIS truck filled with explosives in Mosul. The explosion destroyed some nearby houses where people were hiding, and at least 61 bodies have been pulled from the rubble, but it's not clear how many are civilians and how many are ISIS fighters. The coalition acknowledges hitting the truck, and the U.S. military, meanwhile, is continuing to investigate. Also going on, the hunt is on in Cincinnati for the people who opened fire inside the Cameo nightclub over the weekend, killing one person and injuring 15. Police don't think this was an act of terrorism, but instead related to an ongoing dispute. Witnesses said it was pure chaos inside the shooting when the shooting started, with fleeing partiers stepping over the injured people on the bloody floor, and everyone wants to know how the people were able to sneak guns into the nightclub when 4 off-duty cops were supposedly handling security outside. Sounds sort of like an inside job or somebody with inside knowledge about how the place operates, don't you think? And speaking of ISIS, getting back to the London terror attack, did ISIS have a direct hand in last week's attack in London? There's no evidence of that at this point. However, suspect Khalid Massoud was on WhatsApp mere minutes before the attack, and ISIS has often used the encrypted messaging app to direct their attacks. But again, there's no proof that Massoud was talking to ISIS. And as for now, investigators think Massoud was inspired by, instead of being attacked by, the terror group. 4 people were killed in that attack. And in South Korea, Park, how do you pronounce this guy's name? Park Geun-hye's, oh boy, my apologies if that's wrong. Park Geun-hye's bad mouth just got worse. Seems that prosecutors are seeking an arrest warrant for the ousted South Korean president. They say she took bribes and leaked confidential information. The judge is expected to consider the warrant request later this week. Park was tossed out of office just a few weeks ago. She's accused of corruption and cronyism. And meanwhile, back here in the States, what's going to happen now after the GOP did a giant faceplant in its quest to repeal Obamacare, a.k.a. the Affordable Care Act? Yes, in case you haven't heard, they are one in the same. First up, the blame game. And then President Trump spread it around to everybody. Democrats, members of the GOP Freedom Caucus, but not to House Speaker Paul Ryan. And that's important because the relationship between Trump and Ryan will need to be strong if the president has any chance of passing the next item on his list, tax reform. Meanwhile, one member of the Freedom Caucus is already jumping ship from the group after its part in the debacle. There are lots of theories about why the GOP dropped the ball, like Trump getting tripped up on details, but this one may be the wackiest: testosterone. Yeah, he actually said that. But anyway, those are some things you need to know as we roll through this Monday together. All right, the 27th day of March. All right. And let's see if there's anything else on here. Yoga pants strike again. Apparently, United Airlines didn't let girls in leggings on a flight, so Twitter pretty much declared war on the airline and its dress code policy. Not sure what that's all about, but I guess apparently some young women are wanting to wear yoga pants on a flight, and United Airlines said no. You know, granted, I was born after this time period, but I thought it was kind of cool, you know, especially back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, when people actually dressed up to go out, go on these trips and so forth. And as a matter of fact, my mom said that after she and my dad got married back in the early 70s, which ironically was 47 years ago tomorrow, that for a number of years, my dad would get dressed up just to go grocery shopping. And he still did to a certain extent by the time I came along. Now, it wasn't to the nines like he did back in the early 70s. I mean, he'd put on a suit and a hat, kind of like a derby style hat along that line. You just don't see that kind of dapper dressing much anymore. Although I did run into a guy at Hy-Vee not long ago here in Kirksville that I swear was the doppelganger to my late great Uncle Joe. I mean, he looked like him, a little bit thinner build, but still, it freaked me out. It's like, Uncle Joe, you died in 2001. I was at your funeral service. As a matter of fact, I was one of the honorary pallbearers, as I recall. But anyway, you just don't see people dressing up like that anymore. Well, let's see what else we got here for you as I ramble on through this Monday. Getting back to President Trump's attempt at overturning Obamacare. He's apparently moving on, even after the collapse of the Republican effort to repeal Obamacare, as I said, saying he'll get back to health care once the system explodes. Okay, so the translation is he doesn't have a definitive timetable. I guess he honestly thought going into Friday's vote, which was a delay from Thursday, that the GOP would just march right in there, overturn this thing, bing, bam, boom, done. We have a new law come out here in a few days. Well, it didn't happen that way, did it? Now, I'm not advocating that Obamacare is working. It's seriously flawed. It needs some revisions. But at the same time, it cracks me up, though, that Trump thought he could just march right in and turn things around. And Washington, D.C. has a whole different attitude about how to handle things than New York City. And so he's going to find that it's really a clash of cultures here. And I think he's starting to realize that now, that he's in over his head. You just don't march into the nation's capital and go about reform just so easily, okay? Now, again, this is not me saying that Obamacare is working, that we don't need some revisions, but at the same time, there is a difference in attitude and culture here. All right. Well, anyway, I'm trying to find some there, had the wrong folder. I was thinking out loud. Well, that's not right either. What? Well, anyway, do that. I am trying to find some of my notes here, and the computer is really not cooperating. All right, this is the one I want. Put that in there. Okay. Anyway, getting back to what I was talking about. Politicians spent a decent chunk of time yesterday grappling with the new reality, in which the Republican Party has decided not to fight Obamacare tooth and nail any longer. A lot of blame got tossed around at the House Freedom Caucus recently, and as I said a little bit ago, even one member quit the group. Well, meanwhile, 2016 contenders Governor John Kasich and Senator Bernie Sanders offered their visions for the next go-around. Kasich called on both parties to forge some kind of consensus on reform, and Sanders said he would again introduce a single-payer plan in which the government pays the cost of health care. Well, White House Budget Director Mike Mulvaney publicly questioned the ability of the GOP to get things done in its fractured state. As a matter of fact, as he said on Meet the Press yesterday, is the Republican Party capable of governing? And at this point, I would say not very effectively. As a matter of fact, Mulvaney said the party would work on tax reform and other issues, but the question still resonated. Can the GOP get its center-right members and deeply conservative firebrands on board with a major legislation, or could Friday's drama play out again? So we'll have to keep an eye on the relationship between Trump and House Speaker Paul Ryan for a glimpse of that answer. What else is going on here? What else we got here for you? Here's what's buzzing. House Intelligence Committee Chairman David Nunes announced controversial changes to the panel's schedule regarding its investigation into alleged Russian attempts to influence the national election last November, including the cancellation of a hearing tomorrow with former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, former CIA Director John Brennan, and former Acting Attorney General Sally Yates. And then other news today, that's what we got for you here. President Trump's re-election effort foots the bills for his rallies. Democrats look for the next fight in Congress, and, well, we'll talk more about that as the show progresses, okay? All right, let me turn that off there. I'll talk more about President Trump's attempt at overturning Obamacare a little bit later on in the broadcast. Also coming up before 12 o'clock Central Daylight Time, in the only time zone that matters to you and me, here in the Central Time Zone, that is. We'll have the CBS World News Roundup, got some Today in History, Writer's Almanac with Garrison Keeler, and a whole lot more. Right now, though, let's get a brief gander at what's going on in the world of news. A brief preview of things to come from the CBS News Desk on this edition of the Daily Reflux.
What's in the news? Fog of war. I'm Jim Taylor, CBS News. As many as 200 civilians killed in what witnesses say was a U.S.-led airstrike in Mosul, Iraq.
In this case, the commander of the Combined Joint Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve has directed an investigation into those allegations.
This is Brigadier General Matthew Eisler.
We will use the results of those investigations to make sure that our tactics, techniques, and procedures take every feasible measure to protect civilians from harm.
Thousands of residents of Mosul remain trapped in the city. Fighting intensifies between the coalition and ISIS jihadists.
Civilians are desperately trying to escape the fighting, terrified by the bombings but caught in the middle, running out of food and water as the battle rages around them. Once out, many have been telling how the jihadists use them as human shields.
This is Sky News correspondent Alex Crawford. They're witnessing the carnage.
Operations have been hampered by the geography of these densely populated ancient quarters, but also by poor weather. Islamic State fighters are being eliminated, but there's huge alarm about the high rate of civilian casualties in doing so.
The bloody fight against ISIS in Mosul has stretched longer than 5 months. Now this.
Oh no, I dropped it. It's broken. Can't somebody make a flashlight that'll work when you need it?
Duracell did. Durabeam, a flashlight that really works when you need it. Durabeam's casing is as tough as a football helmet. The lens is shatterproof. It'll throw a light 50% brighter than ordinary flashlights. And obviously, it's weatherproof. Ask him how important that is. Durabeam from Duracell. It really works when you need it.
Yeah, 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 just for the fun of it, just for the smile of it, Diet Coke, just for the cool of it, the lot of it, the smooth of it, Diet Coke, just for the marvelous feeling, just for the style of it, Diet Coke, the number one of it, just for the taste of it, Diet Coke.
Hear about a new car? And check out 1985's Car of the Year. This year, Kit has more amazing features and more incredible powers than ever. And September 30th, you can see them all.
I can't wait.
If you can't wait, call 1-900-210-KITT and find out more.
Michael?
Easy, buddy.
Welcome back to the Daily Reflux on Monday, March 27th, 2017. Yours truly, Joe Hafner, here at the controls. And a reminder, be sure to check out my new website, joehafnermedia.com, joehafnermedia.com. And also, if you have something on your mind you'd like to talk about, feel free to drop me an email at joehafnermedia at gmail.com. That's joehalftermedia@gmail.com.
Could be Trump. Yeah. Trump. Oh, yeah. Trump. Could be Trump.
All right, and with the sound of that music bed, that weird music bed, I'm not even sure where that came from. I found it in the archives. Getting back to President Trump's attempt at reforming medical insurance here in this country. And let me turn that down just a little bit. It's a little bit distracting. There we go. That's a little better. All right. Anyway, getting back to the topic at hand here. You know, in journalism, journalists refer to a post-mortem narrative as a TikTok. And there have already been some juicy TikToks written on the collapse of the Republican health care bill. As a matter of fact, Politico has details on President Trump's disdain for detail, while the New York Times reports on the knives are out for Reince Priebus. That's Trump's chief of staff, in case you haven't been keeping up. All right? Well, continuing on with this narrative here, I want to use today's program, to make a larger point. The Republicans' defeat didn't stem mostly from tactical errors. Rather, it stemmed from the substance of the party's position on health care. The Republican Party can't pass the health care bill because it has no coherent health care agenda. And tactics alone can't overcome that problem. They're using it as a political football, more to get back at Obama for his stance and for passing health care reform back in, 2009, 2010, thereabouts. And so now we're dealing with the implications of that. And Trump and the Republican Party, though it may not be entirely coherent on their message, they are clear in that they want to attack the former administration, basically saying, well, we can make one too. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And especially when you don't have something better in place. Well, the party spent years demonizing the law. The GOP spent years demonizing the law that expanded coverage in a politically moderate way, incorporating many conservative ideas. Now, moving much further to the right of Obamacare required taking away or worsen a lot of people's health insurance. And the Republicans may have been aware of that, but they didn't give two poops in hell about it. And that came back to bite them last week. And there are some GOP leaders at least have enough heart left to say, you know what, this is a bad idea. How am I going to face my constituents up for re-election time when I supported this bill? You know, some of them took some flack, I'm sure, for supporting the bill before, you know, the few of the GOP that did. But now Republican leaders are having a hard time owning up to that reality. They pretended they were helping people whom they were actually hurting. Well, the public, as I said, caught on, thanks in part to an engaged, passionate, progressive opposition to the bill. And the people rallied, went to town halls, and called their congressional members. Experts across the political spectrum called the bill a nightmare. The bill would become brutally unpopular. As a matter of fact, in the House of Representatives, Democrats opposed it unanimously, while GOP leaders lost both relative moderates in their party and far-right conservatives. And all of it started with the party's dishonest approach to Obamacare. Republicans sowed, and the Republicans reaped. And there you have it. And that's why Trumpcare is not going to work. And until the Republicans abandon that attitude, any reform they try to make is going to fall flat on its face. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Well, let's see what else we got in the program for today. And kind of talked out about Trumpcare for a little while, aren't you? I know I am. Well, we just took care of what's in the news. We'll have the Dave Ross Show here in just a few seconds, along with the Osgood File, on this edition of the Daily Reflux for Monday, March 27th, 2017.
My morning commentary is brought to you by the good people at Washington Federal. My wife and I choose to bank with Washington Federal for a few reasons. They're responsible with my money, which is always a good thing for a bank. They actually like face-to-face interaction, and they believe a bank should be the foundation of a healthy community. Washington Federal, invested here. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. It hurts to have to say this because I've been a part of it for more than 40 years now, but it's clear that the media is to blame for some of President Trump's credibility problems, though not quite in the way he would have you believe. It's not because we're lying about him. In fact, when somebody sends me a note saying, "Stop lying about President Trump," it usually turns out I was just quoting him. So I don't think the problem is that reporters are genetically dishonest, but I do think that certain media people need to wake up and accept that the free ride is over. Once upon a time, you could publish a wild headline or push some fringe conspiracy theory, and your audience would take it for what it was, a little light entertainment. But now, especially if you're working for the National Enquirer, Breitbart, and of course Fox, you guys can't do that anymore, because we now have a president who's using you as his intel briefing.
That was a statement made by a very talented lawyer on Fox.
They said it. I didn't say it.
I don't know. I was given that information.
If you report something he agrees with, he'll just run with it. And you conservative talk hosts especially, you have to consider, as you're keeping it real with your latest rant about illegal wiretapping, that it could alter the course of American history. And I know you're having way too much fun to stop now. But all I ask is that if you decide to report something like, that North Korea is about to fire off a working ICBM, please double check, because you might as well have the launch codes. And for God's sake, nobody play War of the Worlds on Halloween.
The Osgood File. This is Charles Osgood. A high-profile auction will be taking place in Washington next month of a handwritten diary that John F. Kennedy wrote when he was 28 years old. And it includes his own take on Nazi Germany and its Führer Adolf Hitler. Our CBS News colleague Tony DeCopel is in Washington with a history of what this diary reveals.
When JFK was writing about Hitler, the dictator's suicide had happened just 4 months earlier. JFK's diary was published in book form in the mid-1990s, but now we're getting a look at the handwritten pages, the side of Kennedy we've never seen before. Germany had just surrendered, and the 28-year-old JFK was touring Europe as a newspaper correspondent, traveling shoulder to shoulder with leaders from around the world.
Who is selling this JFK manuscript?
Kennedy gave the diary to his Senate research assistant, Deidre Henderson, who published it in book form in the mid-90s. She's now auctioning the original document, providing a new window into the man who would be president.
For example, speaking of Hitler, says DeCopel,
Kennedy writes, Hitler had boundless ambition for his country, which rendered him a menace to the peace of the world, but he had a mystery about him in the way he lived and the manner of his death that will live and grow after him.
Barry Livingston is the executive vice president of RR Auction, the house that's holding the auction.
There's no glorification, and I wouldn't take this out of context. I think Kennedy was a historian, and he's writing his understanding of Hitler's place in history.
The auction for the diary will be held on April the 26th. The winning bid expected to be around $200,000. The Osgood File. This is Charles Osgood on the CBS Radio Network.
You're listening to the Daily Reflux for Monday, March 27th, 2017. Yours truly, Joe Hafner, here at the controls. And thanks for tagging along on this broadcast, the inaugural broadcast, what I hope will be the first of many, many shows to come. It is good to be back on the airwaves once again, albeit this on the internet. Still getting used to it, even though I've been an internet broadcaster longer than I was probably a radio broadcaster. Or, not quite, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Speaking of getting there, we'll have Today in History for you in just a moment. I'll have Today in History for you in just a moment, as well as some market news information to pass along. And I would be remiss if I did not honor my obligations. And during the teaser a little bit ago, I told you that I am a fan of the ABC TV series Designated Survivor. Have you seen this show yet? If you have not, I encourage you to check it out, especially if you're into political dramas. This is one of the best shows I've seen come out since NCIS. I kid you not. It is, although I admit the storyline in the last, 4 to 5 episodes, I would say, have gotten a little bit sensationalist. it is still a fantastic program. It's kind of the West Wing meets NCIS. Anyway, it's a series starring Kiefer Sutherland, and the project skipped the pilot stage and was ordered straight to series in December of 2015, followed by a formal announcement last May. Well, the first episode premiered on September 21st, with the full season order of 22 episodes coming 8 days later. It's pretty impressive. Check it out. Back episodes are available on Hulu. But the basic premise of the show is, on the night of the State of the Union address, an explosion claims the lives of the president, all the members of his cabinet, except for the U.S. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Tom Kirkman, who's been named the designated survivor. Now, Kirkman is immediately sworn in as president, unaware that the attack is just the beginning of what is to come. Now, some of the other characters includes the First Lady, played by Natasha McElhone. She has some interesting backstory. All the characters are well written. My personal favorite is the White House press secretary, Seth Wright, played by Cal Penn. He plays a former speechwriter who initially harbors strong doubts about Kirkman's abilities to lead the country, but quickly becomes one of his closest advisors. But just to see the development of his character, it's really, really impressive. All right? Most impressive. And speaking of most impressive, I just learned a few minutes ago, Tomi Lahren, the internet darling that she is, Tomi Lahren, if you don't know who she is, she's an angry blonde who's on The Blaze, Glenn Beck's network. Well, apparently she will not be returning to The Blaze after being permanently banned permanently for her pro-choice comments, according to a report in the New York Post. Take it for what it's worth. I say there's some credibility here, but the New York Post is not the most reputable newspaper in the world, not to be confused with the New York Times. But nevertheless, she won't be returning to The Blaze. Lahren, host of Tommy on The Blaze, was suspended earlier this month for comments she made on March 17th during an appearance on The View, in which she said, "I can't sit here and be a hypocrite and say I am for limited government, but I think the government should decide what women do with their bodies." Wow. Well, Lahren's comments were widely criticized even by conservatives on Twitter, and the controversy intensified the day after The View appearance when she sought to defend herself, tweeting, "I have moderate, conservative, and libertarian views. I'm human. I will never apologize to anyone for being an independent thinker." And for that, I can't fault her. But that tweet nonetheless led to a very public rebuke from the Blaze chief, Glenn Beck, who questioned Lahren's intellectual honesty on his radio show. And as a matter of fact, he said, "I would disagree that you're a hypocrite if you want limited government, and yet you want the government to protect life of the unborn. But it takes intellectual honesty, and it takes a willingness to actually think these things through and do more than just read Twitter or Facebook to get your news and your political opinions." This coming from a man who thought the Antichrist was coming at any point. Well, nevertheless, a Beck insider told Page 6 that the firestorm from the right over Lahren's comments has led to her permanent ban on The Blaze. Lynn is reminding the world of his conservative principles by sidelining Tommy after she insulted conservatives by calling them hypocrites, Beck said. Beck told the insider. So it makes me wonder if Tomi Lahren's liberal libertarian views are coming back into play, because there are reports, there are some websites that say that she's doing this all as an act. But if that's the case, why did you retain your name? But then again, it's kind of hard to be anonymous with the World Wide Web breathing down your neck. But Tomi Lahren, the crux of the story is she is banned from The Blaze. And with that, I am ecstatic.
March 27th, 1997. In Nashville, Dexter King, son of Martin Luther King Jr., meets with James Earl Ray in prison for assassinating the civil rights leader.
I just want to ask you, for the record, did you kill my father?
No, I didn't.
Dexter King tells Ray, "I believe you, and my family believes you." The King family urges a new trial for Ray before he dies the following year. 2002. Comedian Milton Berle, Uncle Milty, television's first true superstar, dies in Los Angeles at age 93. A decade earlier, Berle, in an Associated Press interview, dismissed the common claim that he stole jokes.
I do not steal jokes. I just find them before they're lost.
1998. The FDA approves the drug Viagra, made by pharmaceutical company Pfizer to treat impotence in men. And 1963.
I'd like to see my work be considered mainstream, actually, without changing it any. And I'd like to see the mainstream catch up with me.
Director and screenwriter Quentin Tarantino was born in Knoxville, Tennessee. Among his films, Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, and the Kill Bill movies. Today in History, March 27th. Mike Gracia, The Associated Press.
Uncle Milty, wow, 90-plus years old. That man, he looked 90 back in the 50s, didn't he? I mean, he was, kind of a brutal face, so of course I'm one to talk. What do you say we take a look at a humorous take on history, okay? All right, let me see if I can find that sounder, and then we'll be raring to go. Boy, if I only had a producer here, or a director here, or someone to run the controls for me while I'm doing this. Okay, let's try this. Let's try this sounder. It's time now for a humorous look at today in history for March 27th, 2017. And turn that down just a bit right there. All right, and switch over to here. On this date in 1512, Spanish explorer Ponce de Leon, remember him? Saw Florida for the very first time. You know, from the ship, it appeared that someone on shore was sending them signals using flashes of light. Turns out it was just a senior citizen who had left her blinker on. Boy, if I only had a drum roll. You know, Ponce de Leon never did find it, but he did make some interesting discoveries in the small town of Botox, Florida. Boy, I could really use a drum roll here. Let me see if I can find a drummer here real quick. All right, put that up there. And, that didn't work. Okay. You know, I designed this mixing board. Do you think I can remember where I put everything? It's not under bumpers, wrong sounders. I know where it is. It's the one I just closed. Let's do over here. Oh, we don't want a copy address. Okay, this is some really good quality podcasting right here. You know, good broadcasting right here. That's not the right one. Okay, which one is it? Oh, one marked sound effects. That's the one I want. Okay. Yeah, we need a drum roll here, so let me get a rim shot here. Okay, well, that's not going to work either. You know what, we're going to switch the music over like this. Okay. What do you say we do this whole bit over again, okay? This is one of those kinks that I got to work out. One of the many kinks I have to work out, as it were. All right, I'm going to put this back up here. And there we go. Okay. It's time now for a humorous look at Today in History. For Monday, March 27th, 2017. And I'm your presenter, Joe Hafter here. Yeah, there you go. On this date in 1512, Spanish explorer Ponce de Leon saw Florida for the very first time. You know, from the ship, it appeared that someone on shore... Okay, you got the joke. Even though Ponce de Leon didn't find it, he was willing to settle for catching the last couple of games of March Madness that year that he landed in Florida. You know, March Madness, you know, it was going on even back then. Thank you, drummer. What else we got here for you? 1794 in the state. 1794. George Washington created the United States Navy, having absolutely no idea what eventually the village people had in mind. And no one knew what they were going to do back then. On this date in 1855, Abraham Gessner received a patent for kerosene. Yeah, kerosene, 1855 on this date, which really ticked off his Irish neighbor, kerosene. You know, kerosene. Yes, finally people had something to burn in their kerosene lamps, because, you know, up until then, all they had were just these weird-looking lamps and no fuel to burn in them. Woo! All right, what else we got for you? 1860, M.L. Byrne of New York received a patent for his invention, the corkscrew. And my question is, why isn't this a national holiday today? On this date in 1866, Andrew Rankin received a patent for the urinal, proving you can have your cake and pee on it too. To celebrate, someone gave him a urinal cake, so he could have his cake and pee on it too. Honor the occasion today, we're offering all of our in-studio guests some urinal cake. Vote optional. Ooh. And there you have it, my friends. A humorous look at today in history. I didn't say it's going to be pretty. I just said it's going to be humorous, even if it is a bit borderline disgusting. Okay, it wasn't borderline. We crossed that border. It's time for market news.
Iran sanctions. Nope, not the ones you're thinking about. From Marketplace in New York, I'm Sabri Benishore in for David Brancaccio. There's news that Iran has sanctioned 15 American companies, including defense giant Raytheon, Oshkosh Corporation, and several other firms. Iran says the sanctions come in response to U.S. sanctions. The U.S. targeted a couple dozen firms and individuals linked to an Iranian ballistic missile program last month. Marketplace's Marielle Segura has been looking into this story. Marielle, what are these new sanctions about?
Iran says it's sanctioned these companies because they've cooperated with or supplied Israel. There are 15 companies on the list, including defense firms like Raytheon and United Technologies, which Iran says have sold military supplies to Israel. Also on the list, the real estate firm Remax, which Iran's foreign ministry accuses of taking part in illegal real estate transactions related to Israel. What this means for the companies listed is they can't do business in Iran. Any assets they have could be frozen. Also, anyone who works at these firms can't get a visa to the country. Thing is, it seems like these companies don't actually do much business in Iran, so this may be, for the most part, symbolic.
All right, Marielle, thanks. And let's do the numbers. Markets are down on concerns that Congress and the president were not able to deliver on a signature campaign promise of overhauling the country's healthcare system. The FTSE in London is down 0.75%. NASDAQ futures are down 0.8%. S&P futures down almost 0.9%. And Dow futures are down 0.7%. That's 143 points. An old oil pipeline spill continues to haunt Nigeria. We're learning that pollution from the decade-old spill by the parent company of Shell Oil remains astonishingly high. From the Marketplace Sustainability Desk, Scott Tong reports.
9 years ago, 2 Shell pipelines burst in Nigeria. Local villagers said in court that the amount spilled equals the Exxon Valdez disaster. Shell settled a lawsuit. But a consultant to the cleanup now warns that the soil remains soaked with hydrocarbons, according to a letter Marketplace has obtained. Daniel Leader is attorney for the villagers, and he backs up the observation.
Everything I could see was blackened by oil. There was barely a leaf on a mangrove or on a tree left.
Shell refused efforts to release the pollution data, according to the letter. In a statement, the company directed all environmental questions to a separate mediation group. There's a bigger transparency issue here, says independent investment analyst Paul Bugala. The cleanup could cost $1 billion, but he says it's unclear if Shell's on the hook.
Investors don't have the information necessary to understand how Shell is responding to that.
He says oil companies would disclose these payments under a securities regulation, except it just got killed by Congress and the president. I'm Scott Tong for Marketplace.
You know what you need to have more electric vehicles on the road? More charging stations. And that is the obstacle facing the rollout of the electric vehicle. Charging stations take a lot of time and money to put in. But this is America, so that is a business opportunity for someone somewhere. Marketplace's Jed Kim explains.
It's a bright Friday morning. Warm. Not too warm. Perfect for slacking off. But every parking spot in the Rancho Park Golf Course in Los Angeles is taken, so it's street parking. Which is ironic because I've come specifically to look at a parking spot. It's a portable structure with a base for a car to sit on and what looks like a giant futuristic patio umbrella attached. Hi. Are you Desmond?
Yes, I am.
Desmond Wheatley is president and CEO of Envision Solar. His company made this structure.
What we have here is we have a solar array held aloft above a parking space. It's kind of cool. It adds some shade for the vehicle as well, which is really nice. You get back in the car and it's nice and cool.
Not to mention the real point, that electric vehicles can plug into the station's battery and charge for free, about 220 miles worth of power each day. And because it's solar-powered, there's no need to dig trenches to install electrical lines from the grid, so it can be parked anywhere. And there's no permitting process either.
That, by the way, in California, it takes between 9 to 12 months to deploy a grid-tied electric vehicle charger. We do the same thing in 9 to 12 minutes.
So, what's the downside? Perhaps price. Right now, each unit runs $50,000 to $60,000. Michael Nicholas researches electric vehicles at UC Davis. He says the value of the electricity generated by the sun may not cover the lifetime cost of the batteries.
It's pretty expensive, but I would say even now there's a niche for them. And I think the question is, how much does that grow in the future? It really depends on how well they can bring down the cost of the existing structures.
Wheatley says the price will likely lower, but even now it's cheap compared to the cost of building infrastructure for chargers tied to the grid, securing land, digging trenches to run power lines.
I have spent up to $600 a linear foot trenching a foot. Okay, so you think you got to go a couple hundred feet even, which is a short trench run. That can really start to add up.
Of course, someday there will be grid-tied chargers everywhere. Wheatley says his chargers will still be useful because they can be connected to the grid and act as battery storage for when excess power is generated elsewhere. In the meantime, power is already flowing. Truman De La Cruz has been charging his electric Volkswagen while playing. Of course, he drives a Golf. He's a fan of the portable charger.
Play golf, get your car charged, now ready to go to work. And I played well today.
On sunshine, too.
Yeah, and it's Friday.
Yeah.
He says next time he'll come early to try to snag this spot again. I'm Jed Kim for Marketplace.
The White House is expected to announce a new office run by the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, that would reform government bureaucracy by borrowing ideas from the business world. The White House Office of American Innovation would report directly to the president and be staffed by former business executives, the Washington Post reports. In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
This Marketplace podcast is brought to you by Dashlane. With Dashlane, you'll never forget another password. Dashlane is an award-winning password manager that works across all your devices, making it super easy to manage your passwords. Dashlane is the only password manager with a U.S. patent for their security technology, and they also recently collaborated with Intel to add an unrivaled layer of hardware-based protection. You can download Dashlane for free or get an exclusive discount on the premium version at dashlane.com/morning.
And with that moment of silence, you could tell I was not fully prepared to speak right now. You're listening to the Daily Reflux for Monday, March 27th, 2017, as we stroll through the program. About 5 minutes away from 12 o'clock noon here in the Central Daylight Time Zone. And here's some other things you might like to know for today. For example, in the works, a film and a TV documentary tracing the life of Trayvon Martin, the 17-year-old shot by George Zimmerman back in 2012. Well, that's now in the works. What else is going on? Pamela Anderson stormed off the Celebrity Juice set after becoming upset when one of her high school pictures was shown. Apparently it was an unflattering picture of her, although you think she'd be used to that by now. NFL refs will stop going under the hood to review plays. They will now be given the video to review via tablets. So now you see a bunch of NFL refs out there holding tablets, checking their Facebook profile when they should be looking at the play-by-play. I'm sure for that kind of money they're getting paid, I imagine they'll be more than happy to look at the video at hand. Billy Joel has not released a new album in 24 years. I don't know if he's planning on releasing one. I'm just passing that along. He hasn't released an album in 24 years. Wow, I was a junior in college the last time Billy Joel released an album, or an album, as some of us would like to say. According to a new poll, Muslims are the religious group most satisfied with life in America. I wonder about that. They get bashed more than any group, religious group, in the United States of America. But okay, they're probably freer to practice their religion here than anywhere else in the world. Well, a couple other things to pass along. Walmart has released a statement condemning the actions of 2 Texas men who rode their horses through one of their stores. My question is, where were the greeters in that store? I mean, some old 85-year-old lady going, "Yeah, there you go. Bring that horse in here. Okay, have a nice day." I mean, how far into the store can you get? I'm not saying you should try it. I'm just curious as to how far along they got into the store. And finally, a study says smartphones are dirtier than toilets. Ooh, wow. Okay. Think about that the next time you're talking to someone on the phone. I can't talk to you. This phone is dirty. Dirtier than my toilet. All right. And that's some things you might like to know for today. All I have today's top 5 come up in just a moment. Right now, let's find out what's going on in the exciting world of news from the CBS World News Desk and the World News Roundup.
The White House willing to work with Democrats.
I don't think the president's closing the door on anything.
In Moscow, more than 100 demonstrators arrested. Cincinnati, still no arrests in a chaotic nightclub shooting.
People running everywhere. It was just mayhem.
Good morning. I'm Jim Taylor with the CBS World News Roundup. A new week, a new dawn for a White House tasting defeat on health care legislation and reacting to it by opening the door to Democrats. Live to CBS News correspondent Stephen Portnoy in Washington.
The president's chief of staff calls it a warning shot, a reminder to GOP hardliners that Mr. Trump isn't beholden to them. Reince Priebus told Fox News.
Perhaps it's time for us to start talking to some moderate Democrats.
Top Senate Democrat Chuck Schumer on ABC said Mr. Trump will have to spurn the House Freedom Caucus.
He's going to have to tell them he can't work with them, and we'll certainly look at his proposals.
But with the collapse of Obamacare repeal, Democrats now have less incentive to work with Mr. Trump than before. He may want to move on to tax cuts and infrastructure, but the immediate priority is avoiding a government shutdown a month from now. Jim?
Global stocks lower today. U.S. stock futures down ahead of Wall Street's open. The suggestion from First Standard Financial's chief markets economist Peter Cardillo, investors are losing confidence in the Trump administration.
There's no question that there's disappointment over the health bill not being passed, and I think the real fear here is the fact that now it's probably going to be a battle for Mr. Trump's other pro-growth programs.
On Wall Street, Dow Jones futures are down 133 points. Under the Trump administration, we can expect the Environmental Protection Agency to remove some environmental protections.
It's just what environmental groups had feared. EPA head Scott Pruitt says President Trump will sign a new executive order this week unraveling his predecessor's historic efforts to curb global warming. He told ABC's This Week.
It's clear that the past administration had a very anti-fossil fuel strategy, coal, natural gas, and the rest. And so this is a promise he's keeping to the American people to say that we can put people back to work and be pro-environment as well.
The order will scrap the Clean Power Plan, which restricts greenhouse gas emissions at coal-fired power plants. Pam Coulter, CBS News, Washington.
And looking ahead to the next big battle in Washington, Democratic Senator Al Franken revealing on WCCO TV how he will vote on Supreme Court nominee Judge Neil Gorsuch.
I'm announcing here that I'm going to vote against him. I fear that he's going to be another part of another 5-4 Roberts Court.
The president set to announce a new White House office to be run by his son-in-law today, the Office of American Innovation. Jared Kushner will be seeking to overhaul government functions using ideas from the business sector. Tens of thousands taking to the streets of Moscow, anti-corruption demonstrations not authorized by the government, so a lot of arrests. We're live with CBS News correspondent Vicki Barker.
Russia will be free, these protesters are shouting, but not long after police moved in, roughing up marchers and journalists and arresting hundreds, including anti-corruption candidate Alexei Navalny. So far, so Vladimir Putin's Russia. But protests also reported in several traditionally pro-Putin towns and cities. Two interesting developments 1 year before the Russian elections. Jim?
The game was tied with moments to go. Westwood One Sports' Gary Cohen.
Here comes Pinson down the center of the floor. Pinson penetrates, hands to May, 18-footer, good! With 3/10 of a second to go, North Carolina leads.
And North Carolina defeating Kentucky. South Carolina beat Florida, so both Carolinas go to the Final Four, joining Oregon and Gonzaga. It was a wild night on a Cincinnati dance floor over the weekend. A dispute escalating, bullets flying in the crowded nightclub, utter chaos ensuing.
Some of the members of one of the two parties pulled guns out, and shots rang out so loud were the shots, it was over intensely loud music. So there was a mad dash for the doors for a lot of people.
WKRC-TV reporter Dwayne Pullman there. One person killed, more than a dozen wounded, taken to local hospitals. No arrests made yet in Sunday's early morning violence. That's large hail. Strong winds ripping into parts of Texas and Oklahoma. Golf ball-sized chunks of ice smashing the skylight in Scott Harp's Dallas home.
You could hear it coming from the distance, just like a stampede, and all of a sudden it just loud thuds hitting our skylight.
Using a Bible to commit vandalism at an Islamic center in Fort Collins, Colorado.
The attack on the mosque was not just vandalism, but also an insult. Glass doors were smashed and a Bible thrown inside. The president of the Islamic Center, Tawfiq Abu-Layl, noted it could have been worse.
What if someone came from the back door and shot us while we are praying?
After learning of the incident, hundreds of people gathered outside to show their support for the mosque. Rick Salinger, CBS News, Denver.
At the American-Israel Public Affairs Committee's annual meeting in Washington, Vice President Mike Pence telling the crowd what it wanted to hear.
Know this, after decades of simply talking about it, the President of the United States is giving serious consideration to moving the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
As many as 200 civilians killed in what witnesses say was a U.S.-led airstrike in Mosul, Iraq. Brigadier General Matthew Eisler says the Air Force is investigating.
We will use the results of those investigations to make sure that our tactics, techniques, and procedures take every feasible measure to protect civilians from harm.
Despite Republican assurances that North Carolina's bathroom bill is not hurting the economy, Associated Press study determines it will cost that state more than $3.75 billion in lost business over a dozen years. The law requires transgenders to use restrooms at public buildings based on their gender at birth. Barred from boarding a flight because they were wearing leggings. It happened in Denver. This passenger watched.
The flight had totally boarded. They were the last ones to get on, and they only were able to get on because the little girl put a dress on, and the gate agent said as long as her leggings were covered up, they were fine.
United Airlines says the girls were not allowed on board because they were traveling under an employee travel pass. It includes a dress code which bans spandex or lycra leggings. Once covered, the girls got on board. With their father, he was allowed to board wearing shorts. Calls the policy sexist. So you think it won't do any good to complain about unwanted charges on your credit card bill? Maybe think again.
I'm Gary Nunn. When unwanted fees, high interest rates, and other charges show up on your credit card statement, say something.
Banks are willing to bend over backwards to really try and retain their current customers.
Analyst Matt Schultz of creditcards.com says 87% of credit card holders who asked for a late waiver fee got it.
The moral of this story is if you want something, just ask for it.
But only 1 in 4 cardholders actually make such requests. Gary Nunn, CBS News.
A woman went jogging in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania. Got hit by a car, pinned underneath it until 3 police officers and an emergency responder lifted it off of her, perhaps saving her life. They rushed her to the hospital. She is in critical condition, but alive. That's the World News Roundup for Monday, March 27th, 2017. I'm Jim Taylor, CBS News.
Now at 5 minutes after 12 o'clock on the first edition of the Daily Reflux. Thought I was going to sneeze. All right. And today's topic at hand is the top 5 signs that your host is inept. No, that's not it. The top 5 signs, top 5 reasons why, I should say. The top 5 reasons why you probably need more coffee. Okay. I need my drummer back here. You ready, drummer? I take that as a yes. Number 5. I think you just parked your car on the boss. There's a sign that you probably need more coffee. Number 4, I think, in some cases, that might not be a bad idea. Yeah, you didn't hear that from me. Number 4, I didn't want to say anything, but your shoes don't match. Number 3, both your shirt and your pants are on backwards. Unless you're a teenager trying to make a fashion statement. Number 2, you made the last pot of coffee using hot cocoa mix. What's wrong with that? I do that every now and then. Sure, it might clog up the filter, but, you get some really strong stuff there. And the number 1 reason why you probably need more coffee, you just faxed several very important documents through the shredder. That's where the missing paperwork went. It's in the shredder. Anyway, top 5 signs you need more coffee.
The Writer's Almanac is supported by the Poetry Foundation, publisher of Poetry Magazine, a monthly devoted to discovering and publishing new voices in poetry. More at poetryfoundation.org.
And here is the Writer's Almanac for Monday, the 27th of March, 2017. It's the birthday of the French novelist Henri Murger, born in Paris, 1822, famous for his book Scènes de la vie bohème, a fictionalized account of his own experiences as an impoverished writer living in the Latin Quarter, Paris's left bank. It became the basis for Puccini's opera La Bohème, the character of Rudolfo, based on Murger himself. It's the birthday of Patti Smith Hill, born in Anchorage, Kentucky, 1868, a kindergarten teacher. It was she who wrote Happy Birthday to You, and her sister Mildred wrote the melody. It's the birthday of the novelist and poet Julia Alvarez, born New York City, 1950, grew up in the Dominican Republic, came back to New York when she was 10 years old. Her first novel was based on her experience about coming back to New York, how the Garcia girls lost their accents. She also wrote a nonfiction book, Once Upon a Quinceañera, about the tradition of throwing elaborate 15th birthday parties for young Latinas. And it was on this day in 1912, the wife of President William Howard Taft and the wife of the Japanese ambassador planted the first of the cherry trees in Washington, D.C., around the tidal basin. And today is the birthday of the poet Louis Simpson, born Kingston, Jamaica, 1923, moved to New York City as a teenager. He served as a combat infantryman in some of the most intense fighting of World War II in Normandy and Arnhem, the Battle of the Bulge. Returned home suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, spent 6 months in a psychiatric hospital. His first book of poems, The Aravistes, published just a few years later. Here's a poem for today by Wendell Berry. The old man is in the last days of work he has done and loved for many years. He is mowing with his old team, the white horse and the black, on the open hillside, under the open sky, within the surrounding woods. This work once was known by many of his kind, and he is one of the last to know it. But now, as his time grows scarce, his work rarer by the day, its sights and motions could be filmed, its sounds recorded, it could be preserved, perhaps forever, by wonders of modern technology. He says no. He thinks no. He refuses with his whole heart the already futile wish to make of a past present, a future past. Being so saved, his days would be lost, would be no longer even a memory. He needs these last of his work days. He needs them to be his last, his own, such days as do not come to one unwilling to let them go. Had he been unwilling for them to go, they would not yet have come. Had he not been glad to be the only one to know them, he would never have known them. If he remembers them to the last, giving his thanks, how great will be his reward. A poem by Wendell Berry from A Small Porch, published by Counterpoint and used by permission here on the Writer's Almanac, supported by Lumosity, with a 10-minute fit test to calculate baseline scores and training programs with 50 challenging brain games. Learn more at lumosity.com. Be well, do good work, and keep in touch.
Podcasts are a great way to enjoy programs you love, like the Writer's Almanac, whenever and wherever you want. Podcasts have something for everyone, but some people still aren't aware of podcasts. Think of someone you know who might enjoy a podcast. What podcast would they really love? Now tell them about it in real life or on social media, and if they don't know how to find and download podcasts, show them how. Tell us what you recommended with the hashtag Trypod, TRYPod. Thanks for spreading the word.
This is the Composer's Datebook for March 27. I'm John Zeck. One of the preeminent figures in 20th century Japanese concert music was a composer named Toshiro Mayuzumi, born in Yokohama in 1929. The range of his music reflects a curious turn of mind. He wrote pieces in a neo-romantic mode, experimented with electronic music and jazz, composed aggressively avant-garde works, and scored music for theater and both Japanese and American films. In 1958, he composed a Nirvana symphony inspired by the haunting sound of Japanese temple bells. For the past few years, wrote Mayuzumi, I feel as if I have been possessed by bells. I wonder why it is that no matter how splendid a piece of music may be, it sounds totally faded and worthless when set beside the lingering resonance of a temple bell. The Nirvana Symphony of 1958 was followed up with another orchestral work inspired by Buddhist themes, a Mandala Symphony, which premiered in Tokyo on today's date in 1960. Mayuzumi collaborated on a number of projects with the nationalistic writer Yukio Mishima, who, to protest what he considered the weakness of contemporary Japanese society, committed ritual suicide in 1970. Mayuzumi's 1976 opera Kinkakuji, or The Golden Pavilion, is based on a novel by Mishima, which, thanks to a New York City opera production in 1995, became the first Japanese grand opera to be staged in the U.S. Toshiro Mayuzumi died in 1997 at the age of 68. For more information, go to our website, composersdatebook.org. Composer's Datebook is produced by American Public Media in conjunction with the American Composers Forum, reminding you that all music was once new.
Well, that's some eerie music, but I like it. You're listening to, what is the name of the program? The Daily Reflux for Monday, March 27th, 2017. And encourage you to check out my website, joehaftermedia.com. That's joehaftermedia.com. And also, if you have something you'd like to say about the program or just want to say hi or whatever the case might be, drop me an email at joehaftermedia@gmail.com. joehaftermedia@gmail.com. More of the program coming your way in just a moment, including some music. I have something old and something new on the way. And what else I want to talk about? Well, speaking of my website, you can also check out the show calendar. Another show that I've got in production, as a matter of fact, another episode coming up tomorrow, is another episode of Joe Hefner's Digital Jukebox. Of course, last week's program, I paid tribute to the late, great Chuck Berry. Coming up on this week's program, we're going to play songs about spring, baseball, showers, and things of that nature, and also take a brief trip back in time to March 1970, the latter part of March 1970, and get the top 10 songs that were on the radio at that time. You know, basically the rock and pop charts. That's coming up tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, right here on the Joe Hafter Media Network. More of the program coming your way in just a moment, including an old song for today. We're going to have The Who in just a moment.
Test pilot Chuck Yeager for AC Delco.
This flight doesn't get scrubbed for bad weather. A high-performance fighter has the technology to handle it. So does this, the all-weather Delco Freedom Battery, with the power to start you in the cold and the technology to beat the heat. And you never add a drop of water. Never wait for trouble. Get the all-weather Delco Freedom Battery.
From $39.95 for a Series 40, call 800 AC Delco.
American Express presents...
I gotta catch a plane.
Projected. You'll see a list of the managers and the various graph form.
I gotta catch a plane.
Next time you make plane reservations, use the American Express card and United Airlines Advance Check-in. Because you'll already have your ticket, boarding pass, and seat assignment, you can go straight on the plane. With United Airlines Advance Check-in, you'll have a few extra minutes next time you
gotta catch a plane.
The American Express card. Don't leave home without it.
The Who and Another Tricky Day on this edition of the Daily Reflux for Monday, March 27th, 2017. And what do you say we take a look at the nationwide weather forecast? Finally found a decent copy to read to you. Otherwise, I was going to have to interpret maps, and well, that could get a little awkward. I don't know what that was. That wasn't the weather bit I was looking for. Let's try this one.
Winter weather warning right now. Here's a live look at the Fox 6 snow stick. This is out on the weather dick.
And just what is a weather dick anyway? I wonder. Is that a private investigator that goes out and investigates the weather? I really wonder. Well, the springtime severe weather season is ramping up with damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes in the forecast nearly every day this week, including parts of Kentucky, Mississippi, and Tennessee for today. A day earlier, the same storm system swept through parts of Oklahoma and Texas, dropping softball-sized hailstones near Dallas. And tornado was reported yesterday in Ada, Oklahoma, though no substantial damage was reported. Forecasters with the Storm Prediction Center say damaging winds and large hail are the biggest threats today, particularly in western Kentucky, northern Mississippi, and western Tennessee, including the Memphis and Nashville areas. For tomorrow, parts of central Texas and southern Oklahoma are in the crosshairs for some nasty weather, while Wednesday's forecast takes aim at eastern Texas, Arkansas, and northwest Louisiana. Now, getting back to yesterday's severe weather, it happened as residents in the Deep South cleared branches and worked to restore power from earlier weekend storms. As a matter of fact, a tornado destroyed 4 mobile homes and damaged several others near Cato, Arkansas, late Friday night. In northwest Louisiana, sheriff's officials said a church was destroyed by an apparent tornado, though no injuries were reported. And if you happen to be in the Kirksville, Missouri area and are curious about the weather forecast, well, it looks like we'll see cloudy skies for today. Periods of showers are still possible, although ending by 1 o'clock is our best chance. Temperatures on the cool side of about 55 degrees, and north to northwesterly winds will keep the temperatures cool today at about 10 miles per hour. Get highs this afternoon in the low to mid-50s. For tonight, mostly cloudy skies, lows in the lower 40s. North winds about 5 to 10 miles an hour. A little bit warmer tomorrow under mostly cloudy skies with highs in the upper 50s. East to northeasterly winds at about 5 to 10 miles an hour. Cloudy skies for Tuesday night, along with a chance of showers developing after 2 a.m. tomorrow morning. 2 a.m. Wednesday, I should say. Lows tomorrow night in the low to mid-40s. The east to northeast winds about 10 miles per hour. Cloudy skies Wednesday, an 80% chance of showers. Highs in the lower 50s. East to northeast winds about 10 to 15 miles an hour with wind gusts up to 20 to 25 miles an hour. Rain for Wednesday night. Lows around 45. And then for Thursday, 90% chance of showers. Highs in the mid-50s. Rain mainly before 8 o'clock Thursday night. Lows in the upper 30s to lower 40s. For Friday, looks like we'll see cloudy skies. Periods of showers mainly before 8 a.m. Partly sunny in the afternoon. Highs in the lower 50s. Lows in the mid to upper 30s. Tad warmer for Saturday and Sunday, along with a 30% chance of showers returning by Sunday. Highs on Saturday and Sunday in the upper 50s. Lows in the lower 40s. Taking a look at conditions across the region. Currently, Kirksville reporting cloudy skies and 48 degrees. Winds are out of the northeast at about 10 miles per hour. Relative humidity is, the humidity gauge isn't working, but the barometric pressure is working, and it's showing 29.92 inches of mercury, holding steady. Visibility at approximately 10 miles. Again, 48 degrees here in Kirksville. And a guy on a moped being chased by a guy in a blazer going right by the studio window. Looks like a really bad chase scene from a B-rated movie. It just struck me as humorous. Anyway, if I only had some webcams I could share with you on that right now. Let's see. What else we got here in the program for today? About to wrap it up. Have market information for you right now. But before we get to that, before we get to Marketplace Tech today, did you know that if you're at least 60 years of age or older, you've lost about half of your taste buds? You know, I think I've lost about a quarter of mine over the weekend. I don't know what I had specifically. I know it was a TV dinner of sorts, and I've burned the underneath side of my tongue. And right now it hurts. And, of course, it doesn't help drinking a hot beverage. The coffee is waking me up or keeping me stable, but it's also aggravating that sore spot. But I'm sure you want to know about that. Well, if you're keeping a close eye on your calories, you'll be glad to know that watching a scary movie can help you burn up to 320 calories. Looking at my belly, you can tell I don't watch that many scary movies. Although I think I may watch one of my favorites later on today. I got a digital copy of The Car from 1977, not too long ago. The movie is so bad it's funny. But if you've never seen it, it's worth at least one viewing if you are into really bad movies. 20% of people say they call themselves at least once a week to find their phone. If you've lost one phone, how do you find the other phone? How does that work? According to a recent survey, 1 out of 3 married women were disappointed at how they were proposed to. 1 out of 3, huh? Well, about 10% of households in the United States don't have a car. And oddly, about 90% of the others, I had a joke there, but I lost it there. I got lost on the 405. 10% of households in America don't have a car. Does that mean a car at all, I assume? And finally, including hot sauce in your diet will help you burn more calories. So, best way to burn calories, according to these surveys, is put some hot sauce on your food, on your popcorn, while watching a scary movie. And I guess there you go. All right. Enough of my ramblings on here. What do you say we take care of some market news right now?
This Marketplace podcast is brought to you by Dell's U.S.-based small business advisors. They can help you upgrade to powerful new Dell PCs with Intel Core processors. Powerful PCs are just the beginning of a great partnership. Call 877-BUY-DELL now to contact a Dell small business advisor today. That's 877-BUY-DELL. And by Scotty Vest. Shark Tank fans, remember Scotty Vest? It's clothing that solves a problem for people who carry lots of tech devices and other stuff with them everywhere. Scotty Vest makes great-looking jackets, hoodies, and vests with pockets that hold your cell phone, tablet, chargers, headphones, even a full-sized laptop. See why the sharks loved it. Check out Scotty Vest for men and women by searching Scott eVest at Amazon.com. This clothing will change your life. Check out Scotty Vest at Amazon.com.
It's Marketplace Tech for Monday the 27th. I'm Ben Johnson. For years, the technology industry has been haunted by the issue of patent trolling. Basically, companies buying patents for the sole purpose of suing tech firms and getting a payout. Well, today the Supreme Court is hearing a case that could have a big impact on patent trolling and the tech industry. The case is TC Heartland versus Kraft Foods Group Brands. Roger Parloff is legal journalist who wrote a piece about this for Yahoo Finance. Roger, the case is about venue, which is another way of saying physical location for these lawsuits?
Yeah, it's like the state or the district within a state. There might be big differences between the jury in your state and the jury in my state. So where you bring a suit can make a huge difference, and that's called venue.
In this case, the court could decide to narrow the places where a suit could be brought. That's one of the potential outcomes here?
That's right. And this is in patent cases where there's been a huge amount of what's called forum shopping, which is plaintiff's lawyer always tries to figure out what will be the most advantageous place to bring the case. The big example is the Eastern District of Texas, which is not really a high-tech area, but now a huge percentage, usually 30 to 40% of all patent cases are brought there.
And why is that?
The rules have evolved there in a way that is very favorable to plaintiffs. It's not so much that the juries are out of whack, but the rules make it hard to get out of a case quickly, even if it's frivolous.
And you use the word plaintiffs here, but many people would call a lot of the plaintiffs in these cases patent trolls, right?
That is correct. They don't make any product and they don't sell any product. They buy patents in order to demand royalties on them.
Tell me how this is going to specifically impact larger tech companies.
Well, these would be substantial savings of money that could go into investing elsewhere, or theoretically it could be passed along to us in the form of lower prices. God knows whether that would really happen, but
it also may be an advantage to smaller companies, right?
Well, exactly. Startups complain that this really can strangle them in the cradle if they're hit with a bunch of frivolous suits early on.
Roger, any guess of how this might go?
Well, I do think it looks sort of good for the Silicon Valley group. This is an appeal from the Federal Circuit, and it has a very bad record in front of the Supreme Court.
Roger Parloff, he's a lawyer, and he wrote a piece about all of this for Yahoo Finance. Roger, thanks a lot.
Well, thank you very much.
When you're about to buy some clothes, or even just fumbling around in the morning for the right outfit to face the day, who do you go to for advice? The kids? The wife? The husband? Well, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you've got a new option. The Outfit Compare feature is a way for a user to take photos of each fashion choice and have Amazon get back to them with an answer. I'm a Prime member, but for some reason I didn't have the option to use this feature, so I outsourced it to Marketplace tech producer Stephanie Hughes, who crowdsourced some scarves.
I'm trying to decide which scarf is the best with this outfit, which is very brown. Okay, so I'm going to add the first outfit. So take a photo, and I'm trying a gray scarf. And for the second option, I'm going to use one of your scarves. This really lovely turquoise one.
Two-tone, yeah.
Compare now. I wonder if they're going to try to sell me scarves. I bet they are. Oh, they're ready. Okay, close call. They couldn't decide.
Well, that was fast. I would have gone with gray, by the way, Steph. To talk to us more about the in-app fashion advice trend is Zoe Washington, senior style editor at Brit & Co. Zoe, this has got to be all about our data, right?
There's no question. They definitely just want to get in your mind. Because the reality is a lot of people are like, why is Amazon in fashion to begin with? So I think the extension of that is, well, who is buying their clothes on Amazon right now? And they're kind of trying to answer that question for us.
Amazon is, of course, not the first company to do something like this service, right? There are a bunch of other apps, Finery, Stylebook.
Exactly.
Yeah, how does this Amazon app stack up, you think?
The apps that have come out recently, these are great apps that really help you understand your own sense of style and understand what you already have and how to use it. And that's why I think this Amazon play is tricky and a little bit interesting to me. I'm going to go out on a limb and say a wee bit useless, only because, as you heard earlier, you can ask your friends.
Assuming you have friends.
You know what? If you don't, then this could be your next best friend. But even Amazon couldn't quite decide about. Too close to call. I would be really annoyed if I had gone through all of this and taken a bunch of pictures for a bot to tell me that, in fact, they don't even know what I'm trying to do.
This is how I can see it being really useful. I will have a favorite pair of pants, and then those pants will, they'll tear or something bad or sad will happen to them, and I'll have to get rid of them. And actually going to Amazon and saying, I loved this pair of pants. Can I get some more of those?
And that's, I think, what a lot of other apps are doing now. I mean, Finery is a good example. So what they do is they kind of take your information from past purchases. So it can be like, yo, dude, you need to stop buying those bootcut jeans because you've got 15 pair and it's now getting out of control. Or it just makes you a better, more informed consumer.
Zoe Washington, senior style editor at Brit & Co. Zoe, thanks a lot for talking with us.
Thanks so much.
I'm Ben Johnson, and that's Marketplace Tech. This is APM.
This Marketplace podcast is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. When you own a business and you want to find the perfect hire, you need to post your job on all the top job sites. And now you can. Thanks to ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to more than 200 job sites with one single click and have the highest chance of finding that perfect candidate. Plus, you can instantly be matched to candidates from over 6 million resumes. Find out why over 1 million have used ZipRecruiter. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/tech. That's ZipRecruiter.com/tech.
We're at 24 minutes away from 1 o'clock here in the Central Daylight Time Zone, where the rain just continues to slowly trickle down. very, 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 very subtly here at the Joe Hafter Media Studios. Well, we have time for one more song before all is said and done on this inaugural edition of the Daily Reflux. And we played something old a little bit ago with The Who. How about something new, or relatively new, that is? Here's 21 Pilots. The tune is called Heathens. You might remember this from the Suicide Squadron soundtrack from last summer. Here we go on this edition of the Daily Reflux.
All my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know the half of the abuse. All my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know the half of the abuse. Welcome to the room of people who have rooms of people that they love one day docked away. Just because we check the guns at the door doesn't mean our brains will change from hand grenades. You love another psychopath sitting next to you. You love another murderer sitting next to you. You think I'd get here sitting next to you. But after all I've said, please don't forget. All my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know the half of the abuse. We don't deal with outsiders very well. They say newcomers have a certain smell. Yeah, trust issues not to mention. They say they can smell your intentions. You laughing on the freak show sitting next to you. You laugh some weird people sitting next to you. You think I did not get here sitting next to you. But after all I've said, please don't forget. Take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know the half of the abuse. Why'd you come? You knew you should have stayed. I tried to warn you just to stay away. And now they're outside ready to buzz. It looks like you might be one of us.
21 Pilots, and the tune is called Heathens on this edition of the Acid Reflux the Daily Reflux, I should say. Whoa, let out a trade secret there. The Daily Reflux for Monday, March 27th, 2017. That's going to wrap it up for the program for today, and before I sign off, I want to send out a happy birthday wish to a very dear friend of mine, former broadcasting buddy, David Gaines, celebrating his birthday today. David, if you happen to be listening to this podcast, wish you well, man, and hope we can get in touch again real soon. 12 years has just been too long not to talk face-to-face, and I miss talking movies with him. But anyway, happy birthday to David Gaines, and also to another former broadcasting friend of mine, Jim Coyle, celebrating a birthday tomorrow. So just a couple of birthday wishes passed along right now. Check out my website, joehaftermedia.com, for all the latest on this network, joehaftermedia.com. The website is still largely under development, so, don't mind the sawhorses and the under construction signs that you might bump into. Still a lot of work left to be done, but it is slowly coming together. joehaftermedia.com. And also, if you have something you'd like to say about this program, feel free to drop me an email at joehaftermedia@gmail.com. That's joehaftermedia@gmail.com. My time is up. Thank you for yours. I'll see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock Central Daylight Time right here on joehaftermedia.com and on Spreaker.com. And be sure to check out my program. Other programs includes Joe Hafter's Digital Jukebox, new episode coming up tomorrow night at 9 o'clock as we celebrate songs of spring and rainfall and baseball, and also take a brief trip back in time to late March 1970. That's coming up tomorrow night, again at 9 o'clock. Again, as I said, my time is up. Thank you for yours.
God bless America. The night with the light.